Okay, morning everybody. As we begin our council meeting to hear the submissions of our LTP. Now you have before you have the report and summary of the public submissions. And just to, so that all submitters know, we've had the submissions and we've read all the submissions. So I need to go through them line by line. We do have an apology from Councillor Bill Hammond. I'm happy to move that. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Wheeler. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Because we know that's been carried. Item 2, if you've got any declarations of interest, any changes, you can either see me or see governance, Lisa, Fiona. And the recommendations there are receive the long-term report, that we note the verbal submissions, which we're about to hear today and tomorrow. And we note that all the submissions will be considered during the deliberation phase of the long-term plan in several weeks' time. So I'm happy to move that. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Bentley. All those in favour say aye. Aye. The contrary no. It's been carried. We now move to our first submitter, which is Paul Bryant. Morning, Paul. Now you can either stand or you can sit, whatever you're most comfortable with.
I don't mind standing.
Yeah, and so you have 10 minutes, and within that 5 minutes, and then we've got some minutes for questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I've handed out, or my submission's been handed out to people, and so I may just summarise some points, but effectively it's the full submission. And it's in support of the council, of the Bureau's full submission, which is very comprehensive and fully explains the situation. I would say or invite any members of the council to come along to Citizens Ice Bureau and sit in on some of the sessions that are run, and you will see the incredibly valuable work that the volunteers do in supporting residents of Upper Hutt and Aotearoa. It's comprehensive and they're skilled at it and very well trained. I've got 10 points that I just want to converse through, and I'll mention each one as I address. Free, confidential and unbiased advice. The Bureau is excellent at doing that. It's first class, and it also runs legal clinics, services to the prison. It becomes an advocate for people. And I've seen that as a reviewer at the Bureau firsthand. It's an excellent piece of work that the Bureau does, and it's really been outstanding. I just want to also, my second point is support that we've had. And the support that we've had from the Mayor and the Council has been first class. We absolutely acknowledge that. You've provided us with accommodation at Sinclair Street, and you've also provided us with an operating grant. And that has been excellent for the continuity of the Bureau. And we really do appreciate the Council's support for that. And long may it continue. My next point is that the Bureau is a go-to organisation and it's got a second to none reputation. So many people in Upper Hutt know the value of the Bureau. They know it's there to support them. They know it's there to advocate for them. And they know it's there for them to get a helping hand and to take the initiative. It's a win-win situation. You can't have an organisation that does better than that. And I've worked in quite a few organisations, public service organisations, and I know that the Bureau is second to none in terms of what it does. I've also my next point is the social benefit of the Bureau. I know that there's been some work done by PwC and also by an impact lab study that tells us that the Bureau's operation is very, very cost effective and has a $15 for every dollar spent payback. Now that, when you think about that, that's outstanding, really, in terms of a payback or a social benefit to the community, social advantage to the people that live in our city and who we connect with. So it's really important that we think about that benefit. Is that 4 minutes up already? I want to make the point about operational grant to the Bureau, which is minuscule. We get something like 15, or last year, or this year it was 5,000. Next year, the year before it was 15,000. That grant is like a rounding point for what you might invest in infrastructure on infrastructure development. So I think that that's an important point for you to digest. We've got something like 50 frontline workers. They are the coalface frontline. They are the people that interact with clients or people that come in. We've had parliamentary support. The Right Honourable MP for Rimutaka, Chris Hickson, and who is a patron. He's usually chaired our meetings, and we've also had Chris. Chris has also chaired some of our meetings as well. And we're grateful for that support. We've also received civic awards. The Bureau itself has received civic awards for the work that it does. That's outstanding. And thank you for that. And also there are a number of volunteers that have received civic awards. Lynn McLeod, N. James, you'll probably know these people, or some of you will know them. Shelley Bryant. We're also privileged to be able to say that N. James has also been made a member of the, has received a national award, a New Zealand Order of Merit Award. I want to make the point that over 50 years, we've had something like 170,000 interactions, 170,000 interactions. So people visiting GP services, clinics, and that's been excellent. You know, if you think about the impact of that, and just in the current year, there's something like 3,400 interactions, and currently we've got a growth rate in the current year of something like 7%. So that's really gives you an idea about the volume of work that we're doing. Finally, my last point is that the Bureau is at huge risk of not being able to continue past this financial year. And I don't say that lightly. An operating grant from the Council of $15,000 per year is required to sustain the Bureau at its current operating level. The Bureau does not support the cessation of community grants. Equally, it does not support a change in policy providing for the cessation of community grants. The loss of the operating grant from the Council would be a social disaster for the connectedness, community wellbeing and ongoing resilience arising from the work the Bureau does now and into the future. Surely building connectedness, wellbeing, resilience in the community is a goal for the Council. It would be fair to say that you as an elected body definitely have the future of the Bureau in your hands. Thank you for the opportunity.
Any questions? Councillor Hill?
A couple of sort of things from me. One is, do you keep records about the number of rates inquiries or other council inquiries that you would be receiving? I heard from someone recently about their rates, and their first comment was I must come to Citizens Advice Bureau. So I'm just wondering, do you keep those kind of statistics?
Can I just?
Sorry, I'll step. We collect information on everyone who comes through our door. We keep it anonymous, so we can't say who it was, but we can tell you what their concerns were. This year we've had a lot of people referred from council to us, which is kind of interesting. We've had a volunteer that's been in reception, and your council staff have referred the client to us instead of dealing with it. So we do get a lot. We have, while it's not council, we have council and other government agencies as one category being referred by. And we've had just over 60 in the first quarter being referred by government agencies to us.
Great. I've got a couple more, Your Worship.
No, we're just about time, so, yep, Councillor Bentley.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you for coming to speak to us. What percentage of your income is made up by the council grant?
About a third.
Thank you.
Councillor Swales, and
Just
then
a quick one, thanks for coming. Would it be more advantageous to you if we actually moved you from the community grant to acknowledging that we gave you 15,000 a year for say 3 years and then review it? Yes.
That'd be fine.
We were on a non-contentious grant previously.
Yeah.
Previous.
okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now move to submission 203. Cameron Nash, not here. So next. So we'll go to submission 257, Konrad Hickson, welcome. Yeah, Konrad, you can either stand or sit.
Oh, I can stand.
Yep.
Are we in? Tell us when we can start.
Yeah, you can start now, and we'll ring a bell after 4 minutes and twice after 5, all right?
Your worship and councillors, good morning and thanks for your time. I'd just like to say that I think as a council you're in a bit of a rock and a hard place. I'd just like to say congratulations on actually taking infrastructure, and it is important that we actually spend money on our infrastructure and improvement. That's my first couple of points I'd just like to say. My speech will be primarily on Three Waters, because broadly I'm in agreement with the council on the way it's going to spend its money on the other areas. I do think that rates on vacant land is probably a good idea. And I do actually believe that we should have some funding for community organisations. I think by stripping it out, that's not a good move. So let's move on to Three Waters. The optic from the public is really what's going to be driving what's important to the ratepayers, because you get lampooned from everywhere in the press over. You'll get the council is being called out that there's been a reduction. There is increasing prone to failure of our infrastructure, and when it comes to optics, it can't get much worse than that. 269 kilometres that need replacing over 30 years. So your LPT from last time, 21 and 31, you did speak to Three Waters, and one of the key points were being able to deliver drinking water and wastewater services as a priority. So you need to ask yourself, have you actually done that over the last 3 years? You've got a number of projects that went ahead in the LPT 3 years ago. You've got Rural Road highlighting, H2O, Civic Centre upgrade, Active Mode Transport Programme, Pinehaven Stream and Maidstone Community Hub, so about 140 million of discretionary spending. You need to ask yourself, where was the Three Waters spend when you could have been looking at other things as well? So the LPT 24 to 34, you're looking at 546 million spend, proposed 500 million over 10 years. I want to draw you to a really good article on YouTube. It was done by Jim O'Malley. He's a councillor and infrastructure chair for Dunedin City Council. I went through the exact same process that we're going through now. They had to look at their upgrading of their infrastructure, and I can provide that detail to you after too. One of the things that he came out with was Three Waters was based on an extrapolated model of 30,000 people getting sick. And 5,000 of those they're on their own water supply. So it's not reticulated water. This is private farm water. So it's been taken out of context. The 180 billion build was over 50 to 60 billion dollars that was required was actually not correct. When they done the analysis and they extrapolated that over the country, it was 78 billion. So what I'm saying is a ratio of approximately 40% paying cost instead of the 100%. So it's an inflated amount for Three Waters. So how did they fix it? One of the key things that they did was to push the spend over 50 years. And this will allow you to reduce your costs down to 32 million a year, if I'm correct, from 48 million a year. So do we actually need to get all of this done in 1 year, in 30 years? I don't think that's the case. If you look at the rates for Hutt City, Porirua and Wellington, you've got, you are clearly one of the highest at 20% for the next 3 years. You're gonna get a lot of backlash from your rate players. You're gonna find some people out there that are gonna be really struggling over this. And what I'm saying is based on Dunedin City Council's experience, there's no need to go to those lengths to get the infrastructure built done. Even Wellington City Council, if you walk through Wellington City Council, there's rivers of water just going all over the floor. And they're only asking their ratepayers to pay 15.25, 3 years for that period. So what I need to ask you in that case, this gentleman did overrun a little bit. We have had extra ratepayers come onto the board. What with Wyllie State coming in the last 5-10 years, we need to ask ourselves where that money's going. Will you be looking at your FTE? How many full-time employees you're going to have? Everyone else, national government is trimming its belt by 6.5%. Why is not the council looking at this? And will there be a change if we get a model like Auckland and, for example, that they take the debt outside of the rent? What will the council do? Will they change the amount of rates? And finally, GST. That may well come in. Will that change the amount that we pay? Look, I think you're in a rock and a hard place. There's certainly a better way to do it, but something has to be done. So that's really my my comment on the situation.
Thanks, Konrad. Any questions? The organisation is going through that, looking at it right across the board. Yep. Councillor Carson.
Thank you, Konrad. Did you look at the infrastructure strategy and see that a large part of the Three Waters spend over the 10 years is to do with the Seaview waste water treatment plant? That's not, we have no control over that. We're a price taker.
As I said, I think you're in a rock and a hard place. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt.
And that does need upgrades over the next 10 years, not 30 or 50 years.
Noted. I still think you could do it slightly better.
Thank you. Any other questions? No? Thanks. Thank you, Konrad. Thank you, Konrad.
Thank you.
We now move to submission number 333, Louise Cleghorn. Welcome. Now you can either sit or stand, whatever you.
I can stand, that's fine. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Everybody good? We started on this process. Now, have you read my submission?
Yes.
Can I take it that you understand it?
Everyone's read your submission.
That's
Yep.
good. Any questions on the submission? No?
Question?
Fantastic, because I the points stand.
Yep.
And the reason why I've come to speak in person is because I always think if you speak in person, you actually get heard a bit more. But I also I belong to the Church of St. John, and I'm the climate catalyst and I belong to the Spinners and Weavers, and I ask them for opinions. And I listen in the community at other places as well. So the general feeling is that people cannot afford the rates rise, which is the seniors mainly, which is why I put in there that we need to have some sort of way that fixed income people can get some sort of extra reduction. We live with my family, and we all probably can afford a rates increase this year. But our family is increasing. She's expecting a third. You know, it's going to be hard next year. And I think that if you can possibly look at anything to delay next year's increase, that would be good, or maybe a one-off increase, that would be good too. Now, the other thing is, you were asking us, Chris, about in the meeting about any, and the mayor was too, about any other way we can fund that is helpful. And I was thinking or wondering if when you have new builds, they get valuation straight away, and then they go on the market. So they don't often go on the market without a valuation being done. Now, the rates aren't normally charged until the following year. Could we not speed up that process so that the rates are due as soon as you get the valuation, the rates are due? So then you're rating it, and you've got an incentive for the developers to sell quickly. They're responsible for the rates until it's sold. And I'm just thinking that could give you an extra over what you've budgeted to be coming in, so that although it might just give a bit more wiggle room in your plans. The other thing is that you don't talk, at least I can't find it, you might be talking, I don't know, about in here, about the recycling centre. Now, my church is worried. They think that you're going to take the recycling centre away when you do curbside recycling. And although that seems like a good idea, I don't think it is, because at the moment, I'm against curbside recycling anyway, which is, as I'm climate catalyst, that seems counterproductive, but there's so much wrong you can do with the recycling. You can put the wrong stuff in the wrong place. You can not wash it. You know, it's like, is it economic anyway? So is there a better way? And I was wondering if, I know we have to comply with what the government tell us to do, but I wondered if it was possible to, instead of like curbside recycling of plastics and that sort of thing, we could just bring straight in curbside recycling of compost, which is lacking. And I thought maybe that would be the way forward. We could comply with what the government tell us to do. It's an enormous amount of money that they want us to put forward. And I just sort of thought maybe that would better. Anyway, that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions for
Yeah.
Councillor Swales?
Louise, thank you for coming in and talking to us. So we appreciate, and we're hearing that people are saying that 90, the rates rise is not affordable. Where would you like to see it land?
Where would I
Like to see it land?
Oh, what, the rates increase?
Yes.
This year's fine. You can do a 19%, then just keep it like that for a couple of years and then increase it slowly, I think. Because it's just that, you know, I get an extra energy payment being a senior, and that comes in May, which is, I've got it now, but they didn't tell us this year, so I don't know what's happened there, but never mind, they gave it to me, so I'm not grumbling. But it's only $50 a fortnight for the whole family is extra. And like to find the extra rates, which would be $60 a fortnight for us, round about that, to find the extra from would mean we'd have to not go out for coffee one time a week. We go out for coffee on a date night once a week, me and my husband, and he pays the rate. So that might stop. Now, I don't particularly want it to stop, you know. So, I mean, this year would be fine, but I'm just thinking going forward, can we have possibly an idea of, you know, like, Chris, you're not balancing a budget in the future, you know, and that's a problem too, because with more borrowing comes more debt. And it's like, I'm not too sure how you afford that. Is there anything else that you can charge for, like tolls on roads? I don't know. I mean, that's why I said to you the other day, that it's complicated. You know, there's only so much money to go around, but people spend when they go out to Brewtown, for example, and people seem to have lots of money at events. So that's why I'd like the events to carry on. If the whole community spend money at the events, then the whole community is prosperous. You know, then we can afford extra anyway.
Councillor Manley.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Louise. In your submission, you mentioned installing water meters on all new properties.
Yeah.
Would you support them being installed on all properties?
No.
Just new properties?
Just new properties, because it's about 1,000, 3,000 a house to do it, 2 houses. Yeah, well, you never know by the time they get to do it what the cost is going to be, and that means that everybody would have to actually pay for it themselves somewhere along the line, you know, somehow, and I'm not in favour of that. We had metered water up at Plateau when we lived at Plateau, and that worked really well. But you worry that once it's general, that they just hike it up. So, I mean, in England, they started introducing privatisation of water, absolutely stupid. But then all the rates were fine for a couple of years and then boom. And it's been the same with the collection of rubbish as well. The first few years, $60 a year, no problems. We can all do $60 a year or $120 a year, but now it's 500. You know, so you know.
Well, make sure your husband doesn't stop taking you out for coffee. Okay, we now move to submission number 368, which is Kirsten Mason. Oh, it's changed from here.
Yes, sorry.
Changed. Okay, 407 is Angela McLeod. So that's submission number 407. Yeah. You can sit if you want to, stand.
I can do 10 minutes.
Oh,
I can do 10 minutes now on my feet.
it's offering people can either sit or
This
stand.
side. Thank you, Your Worship. Kia ora tātou, ko Angela McLeod. With me I have Jane Wyllie and Leah Clark, and here to help with answer questions. He kai a te rangatira, he kōrero. He kai a te rangatahi, he whakarongo. The food of leaders are their words. The food of the apprentice is to listen. Food is a fact of life, like birth and death are facts. So is food. It should therefore be an integral part of the long-term plan. Food security, food resilience, food production, food system and food economy. You have signed up to the future development strategy. Everyone has equity of access to nutritious food, or so we think. This is especially important after or during an adverse event or in, as we are now, a cost of living crisis. The Regional Kai Network is a group of foodies who meet regularly to support each other and work on ensuring that everyone has equity of access to nutritious food. We stretch from the Wairarapa, Horowhenua down to Cook Strait. What we can't see is how the future development strategy is being supported by your LTP. We want to see event, community and sustainability funding kept so that people working to provide the community access to food can do so with council support. Some support you can provide is non-financial, and I'll get to that. We ask that you reconsider the 2 intersection upgrades. They don't need to happen now. We also ask that you do not fund depreciation now, that you defer that until the cost of living crisis is averted. And when you do, to start funding it, spread it out over a longer period of time so as not to put too much financial stress on families. Once it is confirmed that the staff and funding stay within the event, community and sustainability teams, we want to see a food lens on their work. Such things as, when considering business development, ensure that food businesses are supported and considered, as well as understanding there are businesses in the entire food circle, from growing to waste disposal, from composting to nutrients to retail. When considering events to support, ensure that any food or food education networking event is supported. We want people to know where their food comes from, how they can access food, how they can grow it and how they can use it themselves. How sharing food is a fundamental pillar of a community, connecting, nurturing and growing connectedness.
when considering sustainability projects, ensure that any project which builds food sovereignty, resilience, and helps to reduce the adverse effects of climate change is supported. How will you support such a thing, or even the SDGs, by defunding and de-staffing the place that does it? Other ways you can support the future development strategy, which we don't see in the LTP. You don't have a food sovereignty, systems or resilience strategy. Please do one, and we can help with that. For example, in planning, protect your moderate and highly productive land. Protect the land in the peri-urban and rural spaces which are currently producing food, foraging and hunting spaces, in areas which have the potential to produce food for the community. We ask that food infrastructure is included in your infrastructure discussions, such as community food spaces, though more importantly, equitable access to community food production spaces. When you're thinking of housing development and considering it, we would like to see provision made for local food production in community spaces. There has been a move to ensure that the needs of people are within easy reach, 15 minutes of their homes. Please ensure that food is one of those things, not just a supermarket. A community garden, an allotment, a market, nutrient recycling hubs that build community and foster relationships. In many housing developments now, there's hardly room to sneeze, let alone grow corn. People need to eat, and if for no other reason than to ensure people have access to it in an emergency or adverse event, there needs to be provision for communities to be able to provide for themselves. Other simple things, such as the developers who take the topsoil off the land and then sell it back. How about the developers keep it and give it back to those homeowners that have bought those properties for their lawns and gardens? Simple, not costly. We understand we're the first region in the country to even consider a food systems strategy, and surely we love being first. Hold on to that, because Upper Hutt was the first to go smoke-free in its parks, was it not? Let's be the first to ensure everyone in the community has equal access to nutritious food. Let's be the first to be food resilient, to have sovereignty for all Upper Hutt citizens to have food security, to have a food lens in your LTP, and promote the economic, environment, cultural and social well-being of your community. Hold on to your role in the future development strategy. Ensure food is front and centre. The time is now. Your people need you now. If nothing else, make it easy for yourself in an emergency, adverse event or cost of living crisis by planning to feed your people now. You have the power to ensure that all your people have equity of access to nutritious food. Use it.
Okay, any questions? No, thank you.
So, sorry. I have a couple with that, that's all right. Is the organisation that you're here representing a registered charitable trust?
No.
That's my,
There are members of it that are.
yeah, no, that was my first question.
We're not after money.
So with regard to my second question is, where would you like to see, because you've given us some ideas of the things that we should push out or actually ditch from our LTP, and we picked up what you wanted with food security at a regional level, and you don't think that that's enough. You think that we should be looking at it locally, obviously.
Absolutely.
To do that. So there are some things that we're already doing in the district plans, which is protecting, and there is a review of the rural thing. So that's, hopefully we will hear some of your submissions when it comes to that. So with regard to events and things like that, it's really hard to give money, council really hard to give money if it's not a charitable trust because of the accountability of it. So how do we support you if you're not registered?
Well, we're not after money. So what we're saying is there are members of the Regional Kai Network that want to do events or things and they apply for funding, they will now, if those changes that you're proposing go ahead, they won't have a place where they can go and apply for funding. It's not about the Kai network itself, it's about some of our members. And our members have told us about the trouble that they have finding money. And I've been sitting in a hui for a couple about people that have come to Whatu Ora with some funding proposals, project proposals to fit in with that future development strategy. And, you know, there's only 60,000 to give out at the moment. You know, it's about they're coming to us to help them. Is it?
Yeah. It could go to the strategy.
Yes,
work.
yes, it could.
The money.
But it's a pilot project done by community groups, not by the Kai network itself.
And it's also about relationships and building those relationships in the community. So, like, for instance, I mean, it'd be great if Hutt City Council can support that work too as well within those relationships and connecting the community to whatever's happening in that Kai strategy.
Okay, any further questions? No, thank you. Thank you. We now move to submission 368, Kirsten Mason. Is Kirsten here? Kirsten Mason from Victoria University or Korambana? No? Okay, we'll move forward. We now Bob, submission number 371. Bob Anker. Now, Bob, you can either stand or sit, whatever you're comfortable.
I think I could just about still manage to stand.
This is submission number 371 because 368 is not here. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, Madam Deputy Mayor, councillors, you have chosen to present the community with 800 pages documentation and give us just 30 days to read, digest and comment on it. I read fast, but I really struggled to plough through it all. I put it to you, it's not possible to give the attention to detail that the documents demand in the time you've allowed. You then choose to give us only 5 minutes to present to you in person. Plan change 47, 15 minutes. Upper Hutt IPI, 15 minutes. Regional policy statement plan change 1, 15 minutes. Upper Hutt long-term plan, 5 minutes. I live in the rural area of Upper Hutt. I built my home here 40 years ago and have seen the rural community get progressively more and more taken advantage of. I take an active interest in both the business of Upper Hutt City Council and the Greater Wellington Regional Council, making submissions on both organisations' plan changes as an active member of my community. The rural community features prominently in the schedule of things that we do not have. Stormwater, wastewater, reticulated potable water, footpaths, streetlights, public transport. These amount to some 45% of the rates pie chart. I struggle to understand why our community should be paying for these things that are not supplied but are charged for. The way in which the proposed rates increases are presented is quite misleading. You can do just about anything with numbers when you understand how they work. At no point are the rates increases presented as a compounding number. If we take the first 3 years' increases of 21.43%, followed by 21.46%, and then 21.38%, we get a simple addition value of 64.27, or 21.42 annually. If we look at the same numbers as they impact on us, compounding in the real world, then we arrive at 79.02%. That is 26.34 in each of the first 3 years. I've not taken much notice of years 4 to 10 as they are pure guesswork and carry a myriad of assumptions. The logic that the document seeks to apply is that the current generation should not create an adverse legacy for coming generations. I would put it to you that we are being asked now to provide for previous council financial mismanagement. Basically, council has chosen to spend money they do not have on vanity projects to the extent of at least $87 million and now want to bring the costs up front. It is wrong for council to treat ratepayers as an infinitely increasing source of funds to balance the books. At one point in the documentation, there is a chart headed Rate Affordability. It would have been nice if that chart took the position of the ratepayers. In the real world, if I want something, I either have to save up for it or borrow against my future income. I cannot just rock up and help myself to an increase in my superannuation. I, like most real people, have to make choices that enable me to live within my means. If I cannot afford it, I have to go without. Thank you.
Yvonne, any questions for Bob? Councillor Bentley?
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Bob. Are there any specific projects you'd like to see cut or items of expenditure?
To answer that effectively, I would have to go through and study the whole document in much more detail than I've got time to do, given 800 pages. And if I just take the summary presentation, that doesn't go into sufficient detail for me to understand the basis on which decisions have been made. I can only look at things that have been done and say, and it's probably with the wisdom of hindsight, that I would not have done that particular thing. I know that, for instance, when the mayor has been challenged about the swimming pool, he'd responded that surveys were done and that people were overwhelmingly in favour of what was being done. I would put it to you that people would not have been in favour if the suggestion had been, if we do this, it will result in a 19% or a 20% rate increase. So how you ask the question dictates what answer you're going to get.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Dillon?
Thanks for coming. So when I look at, and I know I appreciate exactly what you said, and maybe we take on some of the things that you said in our significant and engagement policy with regard to timing and, you know, interrelation with people. But when I go into, you would have seen that on page 44, we broke down and we took out some of the charges that were grouped in the general rate, and we made them targeted charges. Are you then suggesting that we should do that even more and refine them with the points that you've just made around the rural area?
I believe so. What I've said in relation to the rural area is not just my theory.
Yeah.
It's a reflection of the community group that I liaise with, and it's not just one person. It's a feeling that there are a lot of things that the rural community do not get, and they feel that they're paying for them in spite of not getting.
Thank you.
Councillor Carey?
Clarification on that, because your consultation says that you support the rates differential. I guess the proportion that we're doing between rural and urban and businesses. So is your concern with how that's proportional or the increase in general?
That's the specific question in the document that you put out. And By that stage, I must admit I was really running out of time, and I went through and answered the question that had been put forward. The question, as I understood it, was, did I agree with what sits there at the moment? Not what would I see as a better situation? And that requires a lot of thought and analysis. Not very helpful if you're looking for an answer, but there is an awful lot of documentation for a layperson to go through, and I would suggest that probably some of the council would have had real problems in analysing the whole thing had they not been privy to the discussions that had been going on beforehand. Now, the members of the community don't have the benefit of those discussions that you guys had in council meetings. All they've got is that bare document that they've got to work out from.
Okay, any further questions? Thank you, Bob. Thank you. So we now go back, Kirsten's here, welcome. So that's now submission 368, Victoria University. Now you can either stand, Kirsten, or sit, depending on what everyone does.
Okay, I would prefer to sit a bit, okay? Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, everybody, for having me here today. My name is Kirsten Mason. I'm the Acting Chief Executive of the New Zealand Symphony Orchestra, and I'm here today to discuss our request on behalf of Victoria University of Wellington and the New Zealand Symphony Orchestra for a contribution from your long-term plan towards the National Music Centre. I guess the first point I would like to emphasise is that this is not the Wellington Music Centre. It's not actually even the regional music centre. We spend a lot of time thinking about how to make this the National Music Centre, being that you obviously can't tour a building. And there are a few elements there. There will be a state-of-the-art recording facilities in the basement, which will be run by the NZSO 365 days a year for the benefit of the whole creative sector. And linking in obviously to the region's film sector. We will be holding events of national significance. Some of the things we're talking about are national youth music festivals that bring together youth orchestras, youth bands from across the country. Also curated music festivals that would span a number of musical ensembles over a number of weeks in the music centre, for example, in winter. And obviously it would not just be a centre for orchestral music, nor even just classical music, bringing together amateur musicians, professional musicians, artists, ensembles, practitioners from the world of, from Te Ao Māori, and a lot of commercial opportunities as well. Education will be at the heart of the National Music Centre. This is a partnership between the New Zealand School of Music and the New Zealand Symphony Orchestra, which is actually unique. I haven't found another example anywhere in the world actually of a professional orchestra and a music school so closely intertwined. And our goal, our very clearly stated goal, is to attract more and more music students to the region, keep them here as students and keep them here afterwards in employment once they graduate. And as I'm sure you appreciate, there are no boundaries when it comes to music within a region. You know, members of the NZSO live in Hutt Valley, work in Wellington, people live in Wellington, teach in Hutt Valley schools, play in Hutt Valley orchestras, sing in Hutt Valley choirs, you know, come out here for events, go into Wellington for events. It's fluid. And we're confident that having a very strong education program and a very strong cultural program based in the National Music Centre will benefit the entire region. So we are, just to summarise, we are requesting a one-off amount of just over $43,000, which has been calculated from a total ask from all of the councils of $500,000. So that's a pro rata percentage based on the population. And just to stress, that is a one-off request, which could absolutely be spread across a number of years. Those are the only points I wanted to make, given that you have the submission in front of you. But
any questions for Kirsten? Councillor Griffiths?
Thank you. Thanks for coming along. I see you've got a pretty full sheet coming up. We're going to visit all of the councils around.
That's right.
Have you been to any others, or are we the first?
I haven't. So Kerry Prendergast, who is leading the fundraising campaign, has done the first couple, and then she's headed off to Europe. for a month. So Sally Jane Norman, who's the Director of School of Music, and I are sharing the rest of them. So you are the first ones that I've come to see.
Well done. Any other questions? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We now move
Before we announce the national submission number, can you also announce the page and Stella, please? Because we're now out of order and we're jumping around like cats on a hot tin roof trying to find the submission.
The search function top right's one.
It doesn't work. We haven't got the top right. It's not working.
Okay, but we have got a hyperlink to each submission.
Next
We don't mind.
submission is
Working online.
373, which is Michael Gillespie. Welcome.
Okay.
So that's page, where are we heading?
Thank you.
Yeah, 46.
Well,
Welcome.
Worship Councillors, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Briefly, I'm 70 later this year. My wife and I own our own average 1960s 3-bedroom house, and we're both superannuitants. I want to state this because I'm going to have some contrary views to some of the other submissions, and I don't want people to think that I'm somehow excessively rich or don't value money. We've lived in Upper Hutt close to 50 years. We've raised our children here, 2 of whom still live in the city, along with their children, all our grandchildren. Am I annoyed that rates are going up significantly? Yes. Am I a bit miffed that this could be the result of holding rates down for a period of time? Yes. However, I recognise that over the past 6 years, costs have gone up horrendously high on everything. And council is not exempt from this. In fact, if you look around New Zealand, councils are putting up rates quite significantly. I thought the 10-year plan was well balanced and wasn't even going to make a submission until I saw this, which I'm sure you're familiar with. Now, I thought I would because I don't agree with you. We get a cry from older people, I'm an older person, that they can't afford the rate increase. I don't think that's the case. With the proviso that you own your own property and you have no more. My wife and I live very comfortably just on our superannuation and save money. My parents, when they're alive, did the same thing. And it's not like super doesn't go up. Since I've been on it, the past 5 years, it has gone up, in my case, in excess of 26%. Plus, I get an winter energy payment. I don't agree with the statement in there about the council's supposed mismanagement. I think it's a very great slight on councillors present and past, and also staff. And after 50 years living here, I just don't see it. Have there been some things I don't agree with? Yes, but then every ratepayer could sit here and say exactly the same thing. As a ratepayer, the buck does stop with me. I have the privilege of voting for people I want to represent me. It's something I take seriously. But I also know that I have to pay for it, and that's fine. I have always felt that I can actually front up to councils and have my say and be listened to. Might not always get what I want, but then we can't all do that. For example, the pool upgrade. Did I want to see it? Yes. Will my wife and I use it? Probably not. Will our children? Perhaps. Will our grandchildren? Absolutely. And that's it. Do we want to set rates based on the things of the past, or do we want to set them for reality now, or put it off and make our grandchildren pay? I'd rather pay for it now, thank you very much. And Bob made a very good point. When you put the rates up, the next 3 years, it's actually 173% for me, if you take the 19 point or whatever. Can I afford it? I'm sure I can. And I'd prefer to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, I don't envy you your task, but I think what you put out has been well balanced, and I support you 100%.
Appreciate it. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Councillor Carson.
Thank you. We're proposing 3 lots of basically 20% after the 1.5% growth. What do you think about having 2 years of 25%? So the pain is over and done with. We get the cash in, which we need because there is a liquidity problem in the first 3 years.
I wouldn't worry about that personally. As I say, we're in a very privileged position. We don't have debt, we own our own house and we can afford it. If it means we have less copies out, so be it. I don't want to put things off. I don't want to lumber my grandchildren massive debt in the future. You know, we live in a vibrant city. I love Upper Hutt. I think it's great. There's lots of things going on in it. It's a good place to raise families. And I'd rather pay for that. Be quite honest with it. So if that's an option, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Wyllie.
Thanks, Mike, for tuning up. You mentioned about your superannuation. You don't rely on the superannuation to survive?
Yeah, we do. We don't have any other income. Well, we have I shouldn't say that. We have a modest income from some forestry, but basically what we save and our super, we actually live on our super. We don't live on anything else.
But you do have backup just in case it's not enough.
Yeah, I've worked many years in IT, so I've got some money in that. And I've just received an inheritance, so yeah, I do have some money. But we can live quite comfortably on our superannuation. We did it we started a long time before we hit 65 on purpose. But then I'm Scottish, so I'm used to watching what I spend.
Thank you. Any further questions? Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. Appreciate it. We now move to submission number 402, which is on page 49, Heather Blissett.
I don't know if I'm going to say anything much more than what I already submitted. But I just want to start with Ko Te Awa, Ko Te Awa, Ko. I am the river and the river is me. So look, I just think this was a really lovely, pretty booklet, but actually it didn't really tell us a lot. You had to go and read the other document, and even that one didn't tell you as much as I'd like. It's pretty sad that we're going to hear from a lot of people that are going to be struggling, but you're proposing taking money off mainly volunteer sectors. I don't get it. I don't understand. These people are already giving their time for free, and yet that was the best foot forward. Sorry, just checking. I'm just surprised it was the best foot forward that you could put on all the things that were in that booklet. And also there was quite a bit of a write-up. So when you filled in the online submission, it was really clear what you were saying yes or no to. But the projects were like, you had to go find the projects. Now I realise you had them here, but that was pretty much it. And even when I looked at it, for example, I've done a quick costing of the proposed volunteer cuts in community and economic. If you take out, for example, just the AstroTurf and a couple of roundabouts alone, you'll break even, and they're not essential over and above food and water and housing. So on page 5 of the booklet, Wayne, you say you have looked at every service program and project to find areas where spending can be reduced or diffused. And I'm really struggling to understand how that was the number one outcome. And also, we've heard from you, that's us, we've got to focus on core business. So I just want to know how you're going to measure the well-being of the environment and your people. Is it the meal on the table in front of you? Because I'm seeing cars parked up. They turn up at night by car, so start driving around at night near toilets, because you'll find the cars seem to appear out of nowhere. There's a lot of people that don't turn their heating on. They don't. So we're going to further exacerbate that. So I just really want to know what's your method to measure the well-being of Te Te Tau, and the people. Robin Hood keeps popping into my head. I just feel like we haven't learned from history, and it does feel like we're going to need to start calling on a Robin Hood, I think, because that's the way it's getting. So I said no to an awful lot of projects because, as far as I'm concerned, we've got a river that's dying out there. We've got people that are hungry. That's core basics. And I think these projects are lovely and eventually there's a place for them. But right now, I can't see how it competes with the well-being of people and land. Akatara Cemetery, I've already submitted at the Hutt City Services. I'd like to propose natural burial sites because the only two places in the Wellington rohe is Makara and Otaki. And I'd also like to propose that why aren't we growing food forests? I don't, why aren't we, anyway, that's me. Any questions?
Any questions? Councillor Swales?
Heather, thank you for coming along, and probably a little bit contrary from our previous speaker, you're identifying that there's a lot of burden out there in the community with regard to mortgages, insurances and things like that they don't have the luxury of actually having lived a life and now being retired. So I take on board a lot of the things that you've said that we should do away with and reason. So what do you think would be a good level for us to strike the rates at? Would it be, let's take 3% off? Would we take 4%? I mean, you said no to a lot of things and told us to defer, but we
only because I don't think they're urgent. I couldn't give you a percentage. And at the end of the day, I was almost embarrassed when you asked that young man the question, because if he's worked hard all his life and he's got a little bit extra, why does that mean that's okay to increase our rates? So why can't the guy, I don't know, how many people don't even make it to 65 to enjoy a lifetime of hard work and savings and whatnot? So if someone does, that's a bonus, and that could be just, they probably scrimped when it mattered. I don't know, but I'm just saying that's irrelevant. Not everyone will be without power, but I still think when you think about your overall population, it's everyone really. I'm not just it doesn't have to just be the ones on low income.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Heather, for presenting, and thank you for providing ideas in your submission rather than just criticising. On water meters, would you support prioritising water meters over the lakes first? Is that right?
Yes. So, good question. Actually, thank you. Yes. I say that because I have a 125 litre tank and I fill it once a week, and then I add laundrette to that. So I don't know what water usage they use. So I was the type of person that didn't know what water I used, and I probably just turned the tap on and took it for granted. So I do think it's not until you measure it that you suddenly realise, and there's evidence in other towns. So actually, thanks for that question.
Thanks, Heather.
Councillor Carson?
Thank you, Heather, for coming along. Stopping projects from the fourth year onwards is not going to have any impact on the rate increases for the first 3 years.
Wasn't it?
Because they are paid by debt, and that's paid down on the interest starts the following year. So deferring projects like the Civic Centre or anything else from the fourth year onwards isn't going to affect the first 3 years. The first 3 years is because of the decisions made in the prior 3 to 4 years. However, there are some projects in the first 3 years that could be stopped.
Yep.
I'll go back to on page 36, 37, 25, 20 years.
So those first ones you've got.
Well, yeah, the first 3 years. Are there any there that you would like to see stopped in the first 3 years, apart from the H2O upstream, which we're...
No, I realise. So I did raise in my submission that Rural Road, I had no idea, and I looked it up and I thought, what's that actually covering? Now look, no disrespect to rural property owners, they're entitled to, but because I looked at all the levies at the roads further down the paperwork, and I'm still trying, most of us are trying to get a head around it. But the rural road, I mean, does that include the cost of removing beech trees? So what I'm saying is,
No.
it does not say anywhere in there what that funding covers. So that 38 million is an awful lot of money for a low population. And I'm not saying scrap it, but right here, right now, you've got the Tooch Park Bridge, that's year 2, it's not year 1. Pinehaven Stream, I know it's already started, but the turf, I don't know, have you already started on the turf? I'm just looking at the ones that are overlapping into that first couple of columns. Anyway.
I shouldn't have been in my book.
But it's a community.
You didn't come prepared.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
So we now move to Hayden Kerr. Is Hayden here? Nancy Branley Thompson and Derek Thompson?
We're running quite early, Your Worship.
I know, but
Yeah.
they should be here so we can.
They are early.
Derek,
They were asked to arrive 30 minutes.
they were asked to come 30 minutes before. Eric, no. Okay, what's the time now? So it's 12:40, so 12:50. So we'll break now. This is your lunch break.
We don't have lunch.
So thank you. So we'll break now till, we'll have to be called to 1, won't it? Next one. Called to 1. Yeah, well, the next one's not down here till 12:50.
The inner movement. The way that's.
So we were told it's half an hour.
It's not fun.
Your worship, we should have let